It was a Tuesday. I was finishing up lunch when my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Unusual, unsettling. My mother's health had been stable, a little forgetful, but nothing alarming. Yet the voice on the other end sounded rehearsed, almost clinical. "Hello, this is Sunnyside Pines Long-Term Care. Your mother has been checked in," the nurse said, her tone flat. My fork clattered to the table. My heart lurched. I hadn't been notified. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't even been consulted. "Who authorized this?" I demanded. "It was arranged by another family member," the nurse replied. "You're listed as emergency contact. Please come to orientation this afternoon for her welcome." Orientation. Welcome. Words that felt like shards of glass in my chest. I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door. Every stoplight felt endless. Every passing car a reminder that time was slipping away. When I arrived, the building looked benign. Pastel walls, cheerful signage, a receptionist offering slippers. Yet the heavy doors, the locked wing, the hushed tones told another story. I passed residents with downcast eyes, sterile hallways, and a subtle scent of antiseptic that felt more like a warning than a comfort. My mother sat in a wheelchair near the foyer, clutching a small stuffed rabbit as if it were her last piece of home. Her once bright eyes were clouded with fear. "Mom," I whispered, kneeling beside her. She turned, relief flooding her face. "I thought you'd left me," she murmured. Behind her, the front desk brochure trumpeted luxury care, independent living, personalized attention. A cruel juxtaposition to the hollow eyes and silent suffering I already glimpsed. This isn't just about elder care gone wrong. It's about betrayal, by blood, by trust, by a system that profits when families are silenced. In hindsight, the signs were all there, like faint shadows at the edge of vision. It began with a phone call every other week rather than every day, a checkbook balancing to help. But the balances didn't match her expenses. A temporary hold on mail that stretched into months. The cousin who offered to take her to the grocery store then never returned her bank statements. She'd mentioned strange mail forwarding slips, billing notices for unfamiliar services, small transfers out of her savings, always framed as for security, to simplify things, just temporarily. My mother, ever polite, ever trusting, nodded along. Then her driver's license lapsed. They told her, "We'll handle the renewal." Then the utilities were cut to avoid late fees, and suddenly a handyman was rattling down broken springs on her door to protect her. In every case, the language was gentle, caring, until I discovered the missing signatures, the unauthorized deeds, the power of attorney documents I'd never signed. That's when I realized how neatly they'd orchestrated her removal from independence, and from me. They greet you with a smile and a cup of coffee. They highlight paper flowers on dish towels, lavender-scented corridors, guided tours of happy seniors painting watercolors. The promotional video shows grandchildren visiting, laughter echoing through sunlit rooms. But behind that polished veneer is cafeteria food that's lukewarm, hallways where residents shuffle like sleepwalkers, and staffing so low that one nurse covers 3 wings by herself. The lobby chatter masks the silent desperation. Men sobbing for past loves, women rocking against walls, the call bell's desperate ring ignored until battery dies. A concierge guided me past a community garden where pots were wilted, the soil dry. She laughed nervously at my questions, led me to a wellness center where 5 empty wheelchairs stood parked. I saw families drop off loved ones at the door, strangers driving them away, never to return. That lobby is a theater, a stage set where the show stops the moment the door closes behind you. One night I returned after hours. I had no right, no invitation. but I had to see the truth. The West Wing, off limits. Staff whispered of behavioral patients, high needs, observation only. The door had a keypad, a sign, a glare that said danger. I watched a nurse swipe her badge, and it blinked red. She cursed under her breath, punched an override, and slipped in. I followed. Inside, the lights were harsh. The smell was chemical. Rows of beds housed silent figures in restraints, thin sheets tangled around wrists, ankle braces, the blank stare of those who no longer recognize home. A plaque read, "Locked unit. No windows, no clocks, no daylight." One man muttered to a stranger. Another cried for water. A third sat, eyes vacant, drool pooling at the corner of his mouth. A gentle voice said, "But safety that cages a person for prolonging life is cruelty." The slick booklet they hand you during intake reads like a contract of surrender. Consent to care, release of liability, emergency interventions. Buried in six-point text are clauses that let them medicate, seclude, even bind a resident, all without additional oversight. They're for their own good, they claim. But those clauses are cover for chemical sedation to keep residents docile. They are excuses to ignore cries for help. They are the legal backbone of a system designed to hide its horrors behind fine print. I found amendment pages unsigned, witness lines blank, initial boxes unchecked. But nestled between pages was a form granting power to make decisions on Mum's behalf, signed by someone who said, "I thought I was helping." I confronted the director. She leaned back in her leather chair as if she were watching me from a stage. Her smile was polished, practiced, an unspoken promise that nothing would change. "We follow all regulations," she said, voice calm, eyes steady. "Your mother's safe here. We have strict policies in place." Policies, rules, fine print, words designed to trap, to pacify, to obscure. I asked for the social worker's notes. She hesitated. Her gloved fingers tapped a pen on her desk. Then, with deliberate slowness, she handed me a folder. Inside were typed lines that hit me like iron bars. Per family request, admit patient. Patient shows no objection. Consent signed by proxy. Continued care beneficial under current living arrangement. Each phrase felt like a nail in my mother's coffin of autonomy. No mention of her perspective, only second-hand declarations. No psychiatrist's evaluation, no judge's oversight, no court hearing, just a checkbox and a rubber stamp. I flipped through the pages looking for her signature. Absent. I searched for the witness line. Blank. The section for mental capacity evaluation? Not a word. The form was sanitized. Clinical language masking coercion. It read as care but carried the weight of chains. Each stamped date was a sentence served without parole. I looked up at the director. "This document is incomplete. There's no legal foundation here." She sighed as if I were the one causing inconvenience. "The paperwork meets state codes. Your cousin provided written authorization. That's all we need." But authorization handed over under false pretenses, an elderly woman unaware of the consequences, wasn't consent. It was a takeover. As I stood there, I realized how cleverly the system weaponizes indifference. A pro forma note tucked behind layers of bureaucracy can redefine freedom as confinement. A single unchecked box transforms a veteran mother into a passive ward. A few sentences shoved into a file become the invisible bars holding her hostage. Why was it easier to question her sanity than the legality of the documents? Why did no one ask if she understood those words she never signed? I demanded to see her intake assessment, her daily care plan, even her dietary logs, anything to prove they were actually caring for her. They offered a summary sheet of crock-pot meals and scheduled bingo nights, but no evidence of genuine oversight, no notes on her mood swings, no records of her daily condition, just bullet points designed to check compliance boxes. I took a deep breath. This isn't care, this is custody, and I won't stand for it. They said they'd re-examine the file. I knew they wouldn't. The system had already made its choice. Control at any cost. I left that office carrying more than a folder. I carried the weight of every elder whose voice had been muted by a checkbox. I carried the knowledge that the most dangerous thing isn't physical abuse. It's turning a human being into a line item. The invisible chains are the hardest to break because you can't see them until you're already bound. During a routine check-in, I saw her face pressed to the window, tears trailing down her cheeks. She mouthed, "Help me," shaking so hard I thought she'd crumble. I stormed over, grabbed her hand, and said, "I am here." The staff intervened. They issued warnings. They threatened to call security. They told me I was disrupting the peace. I was escorted out. I watched their laughter as I walked away, the locked door clicking shut behind me. That moment, I realized, their peace came at her terror. I became a one-woman crusade. Lawyer calls at dawn, ombudsman emails at dusk, news tips at midnight, social media posts, community meetings. I became relentless. I filed injunctions, subpoenas, emergency motions. They fought me with delays, claims of compliance, fabricated incident reports. They said she was better off with 24-hour supervision. They said I was endangering her by refusing care. But they had never faced my fury. Courtrooms stink of stale air and desperation. But on that day, justice smelled like tears and triumph. The judge tore apart their paperwork, exposed the blank signatures, the ghost-written consents, the locked-wing horrors. I stood guard as they wheeled my mother out, flushed cheeks, trembling hands, a new spark in her eyes. She took her first free breath in months under the open sky. She's safe at home now. She sleeps in her own bed. Her golden hair cascades across familiar pillows. But she flinches at the phone. She jumps at knocks. She won't let anyone help her dress. Trauma is not healed by freedom. It's carried in every memory. And she carries it like a scar. If you love someone over 60, do not wait. Check their mailing address monthly. Review bank statements weekly. Visit at random hours. Read every document before you sign. Demand transparency. Keep your loved one's life in your hands, not theirs. They prey on silence, on shame, on the assumption that families protect each other. But sometimes, a predator hides in a familiar name. They thought they could hide it. They thought they could profit from her fear. They thought they'd break her and silence me. They were wrong. Now you know. Stay vigilant, stay loud. Check on your elders. Hold their hands. Break the silence. Because the day they think you won't come will be the day they cage your loved one forever. Never again.